You're listening to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where each week we have a conversation with everyday martial arts practitioners. From the first motivation to train, martial arts enriches our lives and becomes a lifestyle. Welcome to the individual stories of those martial artists living that lifestyle. You are listening to the abbreviated version. For those of you checking this out on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Full-length versions of this podcast can be subscribed to at our Patreon page, is www.patreon.com/malmag. Or individual full-length episodes can be purchased at our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com. Before we begin this week's program, I would like to remind you to check out martialartslifestylemagazine.com to see articles on the martial arts. Click on the store tab to find products for the practice of Southeast Asian martial arts, featuring Timmy B's brand sticks. Check out the courses tab, currently featuring a course on the Dos Manos method of the Filipino Martial Arts. Also check out our Places to Train page, featuring top quality martial art academies from around the world. And of course, check out our events page for seminars and events coming up around the world. To see your school listed in our Places to Train page or your event on our events calendar, contact us at malmagonline@gmail.com. This week I get on Zoom and I connect back to Wisconsin again, and I talk with martial artist Shawn McCarthy. We talk about how he got involved in martial arts, which involved talking a karate guy at the YMCA into teaching him and his friends, participating in tournament fighting and local full contact fighting, training fighters in the 1990s, finding MKG and becoming an instructor under Guro Dan, and much more. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast. And today I am on Zoom and I'm talking to the great state of Wisconsin, one of my favorite Midwestern states, because, you know, I think if you've listened to any of these podcasts, you know that I grew up in the Midwest and have an affinity and affection for the people from there. And this gentleman, I've been twisting his arm for a long time to get on the show. And I finally threatened him that he could not see Bo, the dog, anymore. Who he generally loved. Yeah.
No. Don't pull Bo away. That's evil.
That's right. This guy generally, as most people, love Bo the Frenchie more than they do me, but that's okay. I am the gatekeeper, so therefore one must. Well, let me say. So, Shawn McCarthy, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. And
I'll let you know that I'll be sending you a lot of Bo photos. I'll be house sitting and watching him for 17 days here, starting at the end of next week. So yeah, so there'll be a lot of Bo going out on social media.
I do have to say this. To actually meet Bo, he's a cool dog, but I could not believe how beefy that boy is. He is one solid dog. Yeah, he is. I always tell people he's 10 pounds heavier than he looks. Like, you go, you want to pick him up and hug him, you're like, oh my God. He is solid. He is.
But, yeah, he's a good boy. He's gonna be he's 5 this month.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. So, you know, he's still very playful and he's just, you know, like an athlete, that dog.
And he's a seminar aficionado.
Oh yeah,
at the academy with his little bed. Just chilling.
Yep, hangs out and says, "Okay, all right, you're not doing stuff. Come over here and pet me."
Yep, that's right. That's right.
Speaking of seminars, we just finished up Legends, and I definitely had 2 or 3 people asking about him, as usual.
Yeah, well, he's a celebrity for sure.
Yeah, those he did make an appearance at, too long of a day for him to hang out there. But anyway, yeah, he'll be. You'll see new Bo stuff here coming up. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about your involvement in martial arts. How did you get started in this crazy thing we do?
In preparing for our conversation today, I went back and looked at some stuff, and next year around this time, it will be 50 years and doing the martial arts. Yeah. Started back in 76. Back in that time, in central Wisconsin, trying to find any type of martial arts training was like going to the Mars. There was hardly anything. There there was one school in town that started late 70s. Yeah, one of my friends and I were at the Y, and we saw a guy practicing martial arts, and he had done some Okinawan. He was doing Okinawan style martial arts, and we pestered him to the point where he said, "Yes, I'll teach you." And so for the next several years, once a week, we would go to the Y and get dropped off, and that's where I started. I started at the YMCA. Later on, after I graduated from high school, another school came into town, and at that point, like most people, my drive for martial arts came from what was then on the tube. So Green Hornet, Longstreet, Bruce Lee's cameo on Batman, the original, all those things. But went to join this Taekwondo school, because I've always been naturally flexible. So let's see, that's 79. So 79 through the 80s, heavily involved in Taekwondo, got my black belt and second degree in Taekwondo, did a lot, and during that time period did a lot of tournament fighting, and actually delved into and tried fighting in the ring, which was interesting.
Again, PKA stuff, like the PKA type fighting.
And when I look back at that, it was more local events, fairs, where they'd sponsor full contact kickboxing, and they'd go to local schools and pull people to do that. I was talking with my wife about this, who's she's a superstar athlete. She always has been, and we talked about timing. Timing is a huge thing in life, as it is in martial arts, and for when we look at things like organized things other than PK. PK was a big thing, which you saw in Wide World of Sports. My dad and I watched that a lot when I was growing up. Watched all the boxing matches with Muhammad Ali and Foreman and Frazier and all those folks, and then came the PKA and Joe Louis and Chuck Norris and Benny the Jet Akitas. But most of that stuff didn't happen until that was, what did I put down? I looked back to see when that stuff happened, and that was early 80s, early 90s, or no, actually 80s was PKA. And there was really no other organization. Things like the UFC and IKF, which I trained fighters for later on in my career. That organization happened in the 90s. So when I always tell people now, when I was at a karate tournament not too long ago, and I kind of just chuckled. I'm like, are we dealing with knights in armor here? They're required to wear a full chest protector, 360-degree head protection. They're limited in contact and how hard they can hit. And I went, are you serious? Back in the 70s, they were just starting to, Junri was just starting to come out with the foam pads. But before then, it was cloth ones that were just layered cloth. I can remember my first pair of chops that I had for my hands, and you hit somebody, they felt it. Right. It was hard contact. So when I look back at those days, it was kind of, they had rules, but they were more or less guidelines. Yeah. And as long as you didn't knock somebody unconscious, drawing blood or dishing out black eyes was nothing.
Yeah. Creating a wound that would require stitches. Okay. That's a little far.
Yep. Well, then what they did was, the center referee kind of poo-pooed you, made you kneel down and put your back to your opponent, Why they attended to him, and they said, "Can you go?" Hell yeah, let's go. And that's how it was back then. But so it was all hard point karate back then. My first experience to the Filipino martial arts came in '82. I just got my first degree black belt, and I was a part of a group of 5 guys that we all, after high school, we all went to different schools and so forth for continuing education. And back then, everybody tried something new at college, right? And then when we got together in the summer or during holidays, we'd all share what we learned and show us all the cool stuff. And one of my friends, Steve Peterson, and his brother were really kind of my first introduction to the Indonesian martial arts. But he came back from college and he moved differently. His whole way of dealing with things was so much more dynamic. And like, what are you doing? Where can I learn? And then I started going down to Madison to learn from his instructor, who was Nate Defenser. God rest his soul. He passed away a couple of years ago. But he was my first Filipino instructor in the Indonesian martial arts, and where I got my Muay Thai and stuff from. And it was amazing. It was transformational for sure. Learned some, at that point with I was still competing pretty heavily. One of my good friends and I, Tim Easter, during the summer months when we were back from school, it was every weekend we would load up either his car or my car with all our gear, and we would travel around the state doing point karate matches. And found that there were some holes because of, at that time, Taekwondo was taught with a 60-40 split, 60% feet, 40% hands. And then it changed later to now what we're seeing with Taekwondo being foot tag. But back then it was pretty cool. And I found that I had some serious holes. So my dad said, because he was my first trainer. Back then, my dad, he in the military and in high school, he boxed. So my first training actually was with him. He taught me some basic boxing and tried to school me a little bit. He schooled me a lot, but but he said, you really need to go train with somebody that knows how to use hands, because he was a big fan. He always came and watched my tournaments and stuff when I fought. And so I trained with the Golden Gloves boxer for a while and actually got some okay hands. And then things started to change a little bit. But so that's how that went. Let's see, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit. Started training fighters later in the 90s and 2000. That's where I met my wife. She was one of my fighters back then, and that was a fun time. That's when the IKF was really a bustling organization and was worldwide for that. Towards the end of 2000, it was beginning of 2000, 2002, 2003. I reached out and found MKG and met some amazingly talented people. Oh my gosh. Girl Rick Faye is, Guro Rick, he's
right. He's no stranger to the audience
too.
He's been brought up so many times. I should go through these podcasts sometime and just for fun do a scoreboard of shout outs.
6 degrees of Rick Faye.
That's right.
6 degrees of Rick Faye, and watch. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if you look at Guro Rick, he's an amazing instructor. Selflessly opens opens his knowledge to everybody. And it's really humbling being a part of that organization and the huge, deep well of talent that has been produced from his teachings from there. Right. But started there in 2000, early 2000, like I said, became an instructor under him in 2009. And I'm currently a level 1 instructor under Guro. During those times, when you're going through college and everything else, you're trying to pick up everything you can, and you do what's affordable, should I say what may or may not affect your beer budget for the weekend.
Exactly. So it's just like your diet, right? You eat what's affordable, may or may not affect your long-term health.
So I had to go groceries,
right,
beer, training, and back then I wisely used more so than a lot of my friends going through college used my student loan information or money that I got and grants that I got to partially pay for my martial arts training. So I bought used books so I could afford to use that.
Of course.
To use that. It's education, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that's kind of what the show's about, is showing how these things aren't, and I think we discover that. We definitely discover that in the circles we are, that these things aren't separate. They are the same. We're learning sort of the same things. The mechanism for the education might be different.
Right.
But the actual education is the same.
Yeah. So then so I've been with Guro Rick almost 25 years now. And every chance I get over there to try to train with him. And I'll be going out to summer camp this year to make sure I get my hours in with him, at least for a day, to do some training. And then became an instructor under Guro Dan. I was put forth just before COVID, and shortly, somewhere in between there, between the beginning and end, I was contacted and I was accepted into the instructor program. And again, an amazing organization, and the talent. And the thing that really, I was at CLOT camp this year, and the thing that amazes me about both organizations is you walk in the door and you're treated like family that has been there the whole time. And it's that unique feeling is really unique to the Indonesian martial arts. I don't know that I've seen that in any other system that I've tried. And over the years before I found the Indonesian martial arts, I tried almost everything you can think of. I've tried Kung Fu. I've one of my friends, the other Peterson brother, who is a really interesting guy. He went in and started doing ninjutsu. So he trained under Hatsumi and he trained under Hayes and Bussy, Robert Bussy, and
he's almost hitting all the big names.
Well, he did, and Tim was one of these guys that was a natural talent. He was just a natural talent, and he really honed that with what he did. And he actually made an off branch of that where he came up with his own system, kind of like I did with combined fighting systems. But he came up with his that was kind of reminds me of Harley. The survival tracking type of thing, but he tied a wilderness component, and so he still does the same ninjutsu type stuff, but he's honed in the wilderness component of the whole thing, which is really kind of cool. But even to this day, I see he sends videos of practicing shooting from horseback and the whole 9 yards. Is pretty wild. There's many stories about Tim over the years that are pretty wild. But that's kind of my background. I spent a lot of time late 90s and 2000s doing the whole train the fighter thing, which was a really cool experience. Like I said, that's where I met my wife. She was one of my fighters back then. And we traveled all over the country. We did the national IKF tournaments every year. Had some great stories about one of the years. Give me an example. One of the years for the IKF Nationals, it was down in Disney World.
Wow!
And it was when Charlie hit Florida.
Oh!
So we were the last plane that was allowed to land at Orlando. We were the last taxi ride to the hotel out of the airport.
Wow.
And in the ride to our hotel on the Disney property, the driver had a radio, and it was avoid such and such a road, tornado hitting, or wind gust, roads are not passable. Mm-hmm. And we got to the complex, and as we're registering, the front glass of this hotel was this huge pane of glass. And you looked at the parking lot, and you've seen sheets of rain when it's rained really hard.
Oh yeah.
These were walls of rain. And we got checked in, and the fighter meeting and everything was shortly after we got there. So the lights were flickering on in the hotel, and it was my girlfriend at that time, and I had brought with me 5 or 6 fighters for the nationals that qualified. And we're sitting in the fighters meeting, and I looked at one of my guy fighters and my then to be wife, and I said, "You guys go and get food out of the deli, because otherwise we're not going to have food tonight."
Right.
And so I said, "I'll get all the information from the fighters. Don't have to worry about any of that." So they went there, and we were at food, and the glass dome that faced the outside of the complex was bowing. It was coming down that hard. And I said, "You get food?" He said, "Yeah, we took everything that they had." They really, there were other people that had that same idea. I said, "All right, well, we need to get up to our room." So we walked over. You had to walk there. The hotel had three building complexes, right? And so you had to walk outdoors to get to the rooms that we were in.
Oh, geez.
And it was, you ran as fast as you could because it was coming down. And those big planters that they put trees in, those looked like they were on roller skates across the parking lot.
Oh,
so it was crazy. And we get to our hotel room, and everybody's kind of getting settled in. And my best friend and I were in the coach's room, and we're talking. We poked our head out on the balcony, and dumb Wisconsin guys saying, "Well, how bad can it really be?" But things are blowing all over the place. We walked out into the hallway, and we had an indoor waterfall. It was raining so hard, it was leaking through.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/MALMAG and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Shawn McCarthy. Coming up next week, I sit down at the Inosanto Academy and I talk with Derek Everett. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available. We also have sarongs, molongs, and wooden training knives. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Arthur J. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.